Hi everyone, today I will be talking about Ebola and specifically about how social media factors into awareness, reactions, and misinformation. I've also added some interactive slides from Slido. There will be several questions. Just scan the QR code or go to slido.com and enter the code pound 4770Z. You will be able to see the responses from our classmates and even from Dr. Hillier. I've also posted some questions on the discussion board where I'll be sharing responses throughout the week and also the responses from Slido at the end of the week. My first question is, what do you want to know about Ebola? Ebola disease is attributed to a group of viruses as orthobola viruses that was discovered in 1976 in Democratic Republic of Congo. Some of the symptoms of Ebola are hemorrhage fever, which means it can be life-threatening. You are severely bleeding internally and externally. There will be weakness, headaches, fatigue, sore throat, and muscle aches, making many people fear since Ebola virus spreads very quickly, making it a hot topic on social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. This brings us to the overview of the article that I choose. Social media. In this article, it explains thoroughly about the misinformation about Ebola crisis breaking down that happened in the United States in the year of 2014, which many people believe that by spreading facts on social media like Twitter made people wonder what was actually true. Public agencies, they were also struggling to reach across globally and respond fast enough for their viewers. And they were unable to respond and unable to unshare and retweet. Some potential false information, there was about 10% through tweets and 25% politically related about Ebola pandemic. This was a peer-reviewed and reputable source. This source was coming from Health Security Journal on May 7, 2020. Now let's look at the critiques and insights from the article. Two paragraphs that stood out for me in the past research indicates the types of social media content can vary over the course of an outbreak and political framing of social media messages, which means the quote I found was, during the past outbreaks, messages appeared more frequently during the maintenance stage of outbreak response, which occurs during peak activity of response efforts prior to the resolution of an outbreak. Hasgundi, 2020. Another citation that I found was federal health officials such as Health and Human Services, Assistant and Secretary for Public Affairs, and Assistant Secretary for Legislation, and can provide frequent updates and concise information to policymakers and political staff members to ensure that science-based health information is easily available. Additionally, the explanation of these quotes are on how to improve public health communication and effective responses. In addition, this also encourages to having trust in the federal health and government agencies to provide reliable information, thus counteracting misinformation. While I was reading, I also saw a few challenges from the article. One of the quotes says, the role that misinformation have played fueling vaccine hesitancy has been widely studied and outbreaks of the vaccine preventable diseases have demonstrated the impacts of misinformation. Gandhi 2020. And another one was by the impact of misinformation during a public health emergency can vary based on its prevalence, content, and persuasive capacity. Some of the challenges I found were the highlighted portion meant the vaccine was very hesitant and it allowed many people to spread rumors and retweets about how the vaccine is going around, even though there was no vaccine at the time, and the disease is going to spread throughout from families to families or families to friends. And it was very unpredictable because the spread of misinformation was a challenge to the public because it caused them to react in fear or confusion. Some strategies I got to know and read of and thought about were launching it early with a clear and consistent messaging about Ebola, using AI or digital tools, since that's currently what's happening in America, to tracking trending misinformation. No, ChatGPT does not count, or any Ask AI sources work. Providing specific and evidence based on counterpoints to existing information. Partner with social media like Facebook or Twitter to flag and respond. That way, that many people can't retweet. A connection to our reading. Unfortunately, there was no connection. However, on chapters 30, if you go through pages 511 to 513 in our textbook, it does cover how to send more powerful messages. What are some real-life examples of how Ebola has affected individuals at work? What are some real-life examples of how Ebola has affected individuals personally? Some of the examples that I've read and I thought of for work and personal application examples are enforcing workplace safety protocols and updating policies for PPE. This is for work. And another one for work is health professionals need to give clear information, whether it's from through CDC or discussing on the news. The last example I thought of was a company must be prepared through Ebola awareness and health and safety protocols. For personal examples, 3 I thought of were always verify with a health professional before acting on what is seen on social media. Create basic emergency first aid kits like gloves, disinfecting wipes, hand sanitizer, and K95 mask in case if the pandemic rises again. Lastly, use a fact checker like Polyfactor or factchecker.org and listen to major news organizations recommended like NBC News, Fox News, ABC News, etc. On D2L, I will be asking these questions. Will people be prepared if the pandemic returns after some time? Why or why not? Can you share an example when you came across misinformation on social media? What strategies could you think of health agencies to add effectively to identify and counteract misinformation on social media? Here are my references. In times of crisis, social media can spread either fear or hope. The choice is ours because we are the ones that are living in this society. Thank you. Have a good one. Thank you for enjoying my PowerPoint.